This is an AMI podcast.
You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks and give you tons of great notes to jot down, including recommendations. The quote that you heard as we kick off a new month, the month of August 2022, is by A.A. Milne from Winnie the Pooh. So maybe this is a little nostalgic for all of you guys, if you, of course, recognize the quote. And the reason why I picked not just this quote, but this realm of quotes is because it's back to school month. All right. Whether it's, officially being recognized or not, majority of us kids and young adults in school and everybody who's going back to some kind of schooling in September is thinking, oh, the countdown to the end of summer. So we're featuring quotes from children's books to kind of help out and ease the pain and stress and sadness of going back to school. And I'm sure that some of you actually enjoy school, but this is for my nostalgia of being like, man, nobody wants to go back to school. Let's take a look at the CELA homepage. This is the Center for Equitable Library Access, and the featured titles from the last little while and that are still up there are You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akiki Amizi. This is a contemporary romance, and the first title up there. The second one is River of the Gods by Candace Millard. Adventurers and Explorers. Check this one out. We chatted a bit about it last week during our pause or play, and All the Things We Don't Talk About by Amy Feldman. Family stories and the last title of the featured books category. So it's really nice to chat with our friends from the Center for Equitable Library Access, and we will get to do that in a couple minutes as we take in some literary news. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's not even necessarily award season yet, but it definitely feels like it when we talk to our friends because they keep posted. And the thing is, these stretch year long, these awards, the Booker Prize, and all kinds of wonderful awards that are given out. So really the part about it that's interesting is not just that these books are being recognized and the authors are being recognized, but actually I'm more curious about the time that we live in and the kinds of books that are being featured or taken into consideration and why it makes a difference to think about these books. A lot of times the content being featured is somehow timely in some serious or deep way. And we get to kind of follow this as we look to our friends that are picking these books and offering these incredible recognized prizes. So looking forward to that conversation in a couple minutes on AMI Audiobook Review. And of course, we have featured books when we talk to Theresa and Karen as well. And today we're chatting about books being sent to the screens for TV and for film. So gotta check what's on tap for that one. This is AMI Audiobook Review, and if you want to join us with the conversations, with your commentary, with some recommendations, call us at 1-866-509-4545 and leave us a message for AMI Audiobook Review. And of course, you can also give us written commentary feedback at ami.ca. I'm Ramya Amuddin, the host of the show, and we're checking in with our friends from the CELA Library, Karen McKay and Theresa Power from the Center for Equitable Library Access. Karen is the communications manager and Theresa is the content and access librarian. We're going through a ton of stuff today, so I want to start with the literary news because, Karen, there's a bunch going on. Do you want to start with the Stephen Leacock Award for Humor?
I'd love to. So earlier this week, they announced their shortlist. They've picked 3 out of 78 original entries, and the winner of that will receive $25,000 in a prize money, and it will be announced later in September, on September the 17th. This is the 75th anniversary of this prize, so it's kind of a monumental milestone. Mm-hmm. And the shortlist that they've put together really has has 3 really phenomenal books. So the first one I want to talk about is An Embarrassment of Critches by Mark Critch. He loves puns, this man.
I know.
Yeah, he does. So
We just read Son of a Critch on the Kelly and
did
Company
you?
book club. So good. Oh my goodness.
It's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great book. And so that one was actually adapted into a TV series for CBC, The Son of a Critch. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with The Embarrassment of Critches. Anyway, the subtitle for this book is Immature Stories from My Grown-Up Life. You know, it's sort of classic Critch, I think.
Yeah.
And so he covers off some of the major milestones and accomplishments in his career and what was happening in the world of politics and culture at the time. So, you know, he's always funny. Everybody, I think, you know, gets a good
Hysterical.
giggle from him. Yeah.
I just can't wait
And
for the
then
impressions.
and then another one on the list is Talking to Canadians by Rick Mercer. So this is his memoir. He's not released a memoir before. I mean, he's written books, but not sort of personal like this one. So this one really charts his rise from what he calls himself a highly unpromising schoolboy to his fame in TV. And I've seen a couple of interviews about the book, and he's very self-deprecating as well. Just he's Rick Mercer. We all love him.
He's fun.
So
Yeah.
it'll be challenging to pick between those two. And then the third one is a little bit different. It's called The Prairie Chicken Dance Tour by Dawn Dumont. And this is loosely based on a true story of a group of Indigenous dancers who left Saskatchewan and toured through Europe in the 1970s. So it's a little bit of a, crazy cast of characters that make up this book. It's very funny. I believe this is her third novel. And she's been nominated for the 2022 Saskatchewan Book Award for this book as well. So it's her most recent book. And I think she's in good company with these other two. There is a bit of a sort of a sad bit of news with this. So in their announcement for the shortlist, the Leacock organization wanted to issue this statement. So they said, and I'm quoting here, "The Leacock Associates are happy and proud to include Dawn Dumont as one of the finalists for the Leacock Medal in 2022. We're also extremely concerned for the safety of Ms. Dumont, who also goes by the name of Dawn Walker. She and her son Vincent have been missing in Saskatchewan since July 22nd. Saskatoon Police and the RCMP are continuing their ongoing investigation." So the events surrounding her disappearance and the disappearance of her son are quite concerning. And I think in addition to all the folks at the Leacock organization, just everyone, including us at CELA, are really holding her in our thoughts and hoping for her very safe return.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it is the world of real life in literature. So pretty sad, but hoping for the best in all accounts. Can we also cover off, Karen, the Booker Award nominees? Because stuff going on there too.
We can. So the Booker Awards is an award that will be announced. The winner will be announced October the 17th. The shortlist is going to be unveiled September the 6th. And the prize is awarded to the best work of fiction written in English and published in the UK and Ireland. It's a very rich prize. It's £50,000. And we have a number of the long list in our collection, but there's just three I wanted to pull out to highlight because I think they're quite interesting. So the first one's Glory, which is a novel by Noviolet Bulawayo. And she also was nominated for her book We Need New Names. So this book is it centers around the unexpected fall of Old Horse, the main character, who's a long-serving leader of a fictional country, and the drama that follows this. It's kind of written in the style of Animal Farm, where all the main characters are animals.
Right.
And it's inspired by the unexpected coup in November 2017 of Robert Mugabe. The author is the first Black woman from Africa to become nominated as a finalist for the Booker Prize. So I wanted to highlight her. The next one I want to highlight is called Nightcrawling, a novel by Leela Motley, and she is the youngest author ever nominated for a Booker Prize. It's based on a true story of how a young Black prostitute was sexually abused by police officers and the ensuing scandal and downfall that came as a result of that. Motley began writing Nightcrawling just before her 17th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. She's just turning 20, or she just turned 20, and she's already nominated for a Booker.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
for
incredible.
Such heavy content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was the youth poet laureate in her community when she was, I think it was 15. Yeah, this this author's going places for sure.
No
So
kidding.
anyway, I wanted to highlight that one. The book has had rave reviews, obviously, if it's been nominated for a Booker. So, if folks are interested in reading an up and coming author, well, she's already arrived if she's been nominated for a Booker.
Mm.
But I wanted to highlight that one. The other one I wanted to highlight is called Trust by Hernan Diaz. And it was one of the most anticipated novels in the New York Times list. It's this really interesting book. It's about a 1920s tycoon and sort of the influence of money and wealth and power in the States in the 1920s and 1930s. But what makes this book really interesting is it's one story, and it's written as basically 4 different books. And so each of the books within this book tell the story from a different point of view. And we get these sort of layers of revelations about what's actually happened and what's the influence and the consequences of the things that are happening in the story. I think it's a really interesting technique. It's not sort of one of those books where it's written by, different points of view in each chapter. It's actually 4 different books that are kind of combined to tell this one story. So again, a really interesting and very creative approach, I think, and one that's worth picking up and taking a look at. We have all 3 of these in human narrated versions in our collection.
Okay, amazing. And do we know when the long list is going to be, or the short list, sorry, will be released for the
Yeah.
nominees?
Yeah, it comes out September the 6th, so, in about a month. And then the awards will be announced in London in October on the 17th.
Wow, this is great. And 3 really different reasons, for picking, like the variety of reasons you picked these books to highlight today. So, really great. I'm so curious about the last one, about the technique of writing, because I've been reading some books like this, kind of, unusual, right? Not like a very typical form of writing. So, I'm curious about that. The Starless Sea is the one that I'm thinking about right now. Okay, so there are a lot of books, to move on to the next part after literary news. There are a lot of books being adapted for the screen. Some examples, there are a couple in theaters now, including Bullet Train starring Brad Pitt and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Neil Gaiman has a team of people working on the comic book The Sandman for Netflix. And just a highlight there as well, or a side note, that The Sandman is available in so many different ways for audio drama, audio entertainment. Audible has a really popular one. And then there's Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This one was so highly anticipated for going for film, and also very well loved by a lot of people, including Teresa. So, Teresa, should we start with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like this book, I I read it years ago, and when I read the description of what the book was about, I was like, oh, this sounds like really intriguing. Not gonna lie, I was like a little put off. I think it was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick or something
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, I don't know about that, but I picked up the book, and I have to say that whenever people ask me for a book recommendation, I always come back to this book. Like
Mm-hmm.
I always come back to this book to recommend. Um, so it's like a little bit historical fiction, it's a little bit murder mystery, but it's also like it's so much more than just that. So the crux of the story is about a woman named Kaya Clark. We start off the book set in North Carolina. She's quite poor. She lives in the marshland area outside of a town called Barkley Cove. It's a coastal community in North Carolina. So it's 1969, and a local man has been found dead. His name is Chase Andrews, um, and he's quite well known and quite popular in the town. And Kaya is suspected of his murder. So at this time of the murder in 1969, she's 23, so she's a young woman, and we come to know her as the Marsh Girl. This is the name that the community has given to her. So this is the start of the book. There's this this murder that happens. She is a suspect, and the rest of the book, or the bulk of the book, is actually going back to the very beginnings of Kaya's life, living out on the marsh, living quite poor. She originally was with her mother and father. Her mother left the family. Her and her siblings were then left with her dad, who had a very bad drinking problem. And eventually, all of her siblings leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
Her father eventually leaves, and it's just this young girl. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think she's maybe like around 6 or so. She's incredibly young. Is left there all by herself in her family home. Left to survive, basically. Um, she manages to learn how to read from someone named Tate Walker. So yeah, he teaches her how to read, because she just doesn't go to school. She's so young, she doesn't quite know what to do with herself. Um, and after Tate goes off to college, we learn that Kaya meets Chase. Now, Chase is the boy who has been found murdered at the beginning of the book, and they have a relationship. So there's also this like romance element, and I mean, just to bring it back to the movie adaptation, I think a lot of the trailers really position this book as a romance. But I would say that the best parts of this book are Kaya interacting and loving and learning about the wildlife and the environment that she has grown up in. Like, I think that, not to sound too cliche or corny, but I do feel like that is the true love story, and this is where this book truly shines to me and makes it something more than just a murder mystery and more than just a romance, but something truly like exceptional in a way that it's kind of hard to describe. You really have to read it. The the marsh, the animals, the everything that she grows up with and she learns about, is like it is a character in the book.
Mm.
And I would say next to Kaya is the main character. It's the main character right next to her more than anything else. And what's really interesting is that the author herself has actually written a number of books on wildlife. So it's no wonder that, really this is where this book shines,
Yep.
more than really in anything else. It's quite a remarkable story. I really enjoy the way that it is structured, and the way that, the more that we learn about Kaya and the relationships and how we grow up, how she's grown up. We also learn more about this murder as well, and this
Mm-hmm.
person as well. And she ends up, going on trial for this murder, and I won't give away the ending by any means, but the ending is also, there's a little bit of a twist in the ending too. So this book is really exceptional, and it's one that's why I always recommend it to people, because it's just got a little bit of everything, but it truly shines in in Kaya, and how she has just become at one with her environment, and they kind of grow up together. So yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, everything that you said, I couldn't have said it better myself, Teresa. I loved this book so much. I can
Hmm.
completely understand why, it encapsulates the reader so fully. And
Hmm.
the thing for me is, I read this book back to back, like right after I finished To Kill a Mockingbird. And it was my
Mhm.
first time reading that, so I couldn't stop thinking of the parallels. Like both books are so incredible. There's so much description and vivid imagery of the outdoors, that presence of life in that time frame, especially outdoors. Like it was just, and then the endings, the trials, the murder, like that parallel as well of the both books, and even just the titles. I don't know, there was so much that I enjoyed and felt so uh, that I was grasping so well with the
And I don't I love this book so much that I am so scared to go see the movie.
Yep, same.
Especially seeing the previews and how they've really set it up. For me, it really comes across as a romance, and I was like, no. Like, it's one.
That's
I mean,
not
it's
it.
one important
Yeah.
facet to the book. Like, I totally get it. It forms the crux of this murder, like that relationship. Like, I totally understand it, but it's really about Kaya and where she's grown up. It's well, like 100% more about that than I think anything else. So
And the thing is too, when we make a book like this, or any book, okay, because this is an argument a lot of people have about a lot of things, into film, into screen time, we're focusing on something completely different. I feel like we're focusing on content, on getting everything in for a particular amount of time, portraying somebody, the characters. But those are not always the main focuses of our reads, right? When we're reading the book, we take away so much more and so many different things that
yeah,
it is scary. Like I totally agree with you.
I know. I'm really being a precious librarian about it, and I totally get that absolutely. And I have gone to conferences, and I one in particular that comes to mind. It was a panel discussion, totally about adapting your book to like TV or to movies. And one author said, a Canadian author said, like, why are we doing this comparison? Like they're just two completely different things, and like I don't feel
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't feel overly like proprietary necessarily about keeping the book essence uh the same to like the movie or the TV essence, right? Because it's two totally different ways of taking in information, right? And I get the argument, like what a person likes in a book is maybe going to be something totally different that they enjoy listening to and watching on the screen. 100% get that. But, I'm going to also pull my librarian card and be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. Well, as we predicted, we ended up talking about the Where the Crawdads Sing for like majority of our time, but I do want to squeeze in one more. So Karen, do you want to tell us really quickly the fastest you've ever spoken about something? With women talking.
Sure. Actually, it's interesting that we just had that conversation because this is a book that I'm really interested in seeing the movie of. It was shortlisted for the Governor General's Award for English Language in 2018 and for the Trillium Book Award in 2019. And it's been the movie's being directed by Sarah Polley and will premiere at TIFF in September. So it's based on a true story of a small Mennonite community in Bolivia. And for years, women have been waking up in the morning. They've been repeatedly violated by demons coming to punch them for their sins. But what they actually found out was happening was that they were being drugged and attacked by a group of men from their own community. And so these women who do not speak the language, they do not read and write, they do not really have any power in their own community, meet and have a conversation about what they're going to do to protect themselves and their daughters and their sisters and all the women in their community. And it's one of those books that I think is it sits with you. It's a quiet book, but I think as a movie, this book will really really shine and be maybe more accessible to more folks. And I can't wait to see what Sarah Polley does it. So the discussions are philosophical, they're religious, they're practical, they're heartbreaking, and I think that in Sarah Polley's hands, they'll come across really beautifully on the screen. One thing I did want to mention is that Miriam Taves was actually raised by Mennonites. So she has an experience that sort of informs her ability to write about this group. And I think that lends a real
Right.
authenticity to the conversations that these women are having, and a real sensitivity to what they're going through and what the impacts of these horrific events are doing to these women. So anyway, so this is one of the ones that I'm gonna go and see the movie for sure.
Okay. See, I'm glad we got the yin and the yang. Like, I don't know about this one being a movie, and then go check this one out.
I would definitely go see this one too.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
Teresa's joining this one. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. Can't wait to plan the theater days, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the conversation and content as well on literary news and your opinions always. We'll talk to you next month.
Take care.
Awesome.
Theresa Power, Karen McKay from the Center for Equitable Library Access. That concludes this week's episode of AMI Audiobook Review. Next time we have Know Your Narrator with our friend Sarah Hillis. We'll be back, and until then, happy audiobook listening.
This was an AMI podcast. For more accessible media, visit ami.ca.